My name is Perry Lynn Silkwood, and I'll be doing your presentation today. So let's begin. Right, what you see on the screen right now are three very common elements of how people are managing documents. So let's start on the left and then work our way over to the right. So fundamentally, most of my customers are or were, right, using filing cabinets in order to store their documents. Great thing with filing cabinets, right? You're being able to store documents and you're able to really file them in a kind of binary way. Vendor and date, right, is a real common way. But the problem with filing cabinets is that the documents can get lost. They can be stuck together by those pesky staples. And really, there's a huge time element that is taken into consideration when people are having to go to filing cabinets and retrieve documents. Or it may be that you took all the filing cabinet documents and you put them in boxes and now they're stored on a warehouse floor or stored in some kind of off-site storage. All of those become, reasons in order to really consider document management. The next piece is some people have already made that leap into going into document management. And so they've decided, all right, we're no longer going to use filing cabinets. We're going to have people save their documents to a network file share. Great, right? Great way of taking that first step. However, there are some implications here on the network file share. And what we're seeing is that it becomes very difficult to actually recall how you've labeled those documents to provide real, true, meaningful search criteria or the ability to retrieve those documents once they're in that network file share. And the other common element I'm hearing from my customer base is that if they used a network file share, sometimes the links would break or someone would change that kind of path. And then that way it really renders that in essence useless because you're no longer able to get access to those documents. So what we're going to be talking about today is software, right, DocLink, produced by Altec, in order to really eliminate all of your paper-based bottlenecks and the traditional business issues that come along with doing storing of documents, in those particular kinds of file systems. All right, let's next dive into a little bit of details about the overall solution. Because what I want you to understand is that DocLink truly is an enterprise-wide document management solution. Most people are going to start in AP, but it can indeed be used across all elements and facets of the business. And it's a modular solution. So that means that depending on what particular business issue that you're trying to solve, you have an opportunity to, in essence, buy those modules that are going to be most meaningful to you. And that way you can also minimize your investment. So what we're seeing here are all the different ways that you can actually capture documents. So let's review a couple of these. Right down here on the left-hand side, we see ERM. What that really means is that any document, report, or form that is coming out of your particular ERP application, we can capture those, save very meaningful search criteria. Generally, it's that transactional information, and then that can be retrieved in the system, right? But not only can we store documents that are originating from your ERP, but we can also bring in any kind of document that is outside of the system as well. Emails, faxes, hard copy documents, right? And if they're hard copy documents, you're probably going to want to scan those in and do some indexing, and we can do some automation there as well. For those folks that are doing things like picking tickets or modified picking tickets, we have a barcode solution. We can import documents in a variety of ways. And when documents come in, we can do some OCR recognition, which is going to minimize data entry. And then, once we've captured the document, we ultimately want to view it. And the big thing here is that you can view it within your accounting screen. That's critical. Depending on the user, you can actually view right within DocLink. Right? There's also ability to view via a mobile device or via the web. So that becomes very important for folks that are really remote, right, and want to have kind of a browser agnostic experience. So there's capturing documents, and then we want to access them. But the next common element is that we probably want to do something with that document. And if we're going to do something, it's generally we're going to route it around the organization for some kind of approval, and we call that workflow. We're going to put that document through some kind of business workflow. And then ultimately we may want to take that data that is added to the document as it's going through the approval cycle and integrate it into your accounting software. So generally that means updating an invoice voucher transaction. All right. Depending on what your business needs are, there are many, many different ways that we can also originate a document. So the Smart Form Toolkit is all about doing things like maybe a requisition or an expense report, or maybe there is a new vendor setup form that you want to get away from using paper. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And then ending with Data Manager, which means that once the document is captured, and we now want to say, please route this document according to the GL account code and dollar amount, we can start getting really, really creative with all sorts of rules that will dictate why a document goes through one process versus another. And then lastly, and we'll talk a little bit about this today, but we're going to talk about the ability to send documents outside of the organization. Not only send one document, like an AR invoice or an order acknowledgement, but you can also join that up with supporting documents or supplemental documents as well. And that becomes really, really important. Let's go into document management through the eyes of your team, right? What are the common issues that each of the team members are facing? And then we'll take a look at, well, how does DocLink really solve those particular business issues? So AP clerks, right? What are the common concerns with the AP clerk? And you see those here on the screen. We want employees to actually have self-service document access so they're not always calling AP. And the big element there is that the more time that people are calling AP, the less time AP has to work on their fundamental perspectives and job activities. And depending on the growth of the company, you may be in a position where you're needing to grow without adding headcount. So that's one of the areas that we can provide a real strong return on investment by, giving that self-service access to documents. Approvals, we talked a little bit about this. We want to be able to send those invoices through a timely approval. The big win here is that if you're in a position of going after early pay discounts or avoiding late fees, that can also help contribute to a powerful ROI. Paper filing, right? Paper filing is about time, and that's again going into those primary kind of ROI calculations. And of course, minimizing data entry. When we're looking at an invoice, we want to be able to capture data once, right, either at the time of scanning or during the approval process, and then no longer have to do a physical voucher entry. We're just simply going to update that voucher, the transaction entry in the voucher entry screens. All right, so how does it work, right? How can we help eliminate these particular issues? So how do we access documents easily, right? That's a huge, huge time element that can really impact not only accounting, but all the people that are requesting documents as well. So what I'm going to show you next is a little bit of some screenshots on what the client looks like and how we would search for a document. So right now, what you're seeing on the screen is the DocLink Smart Client. And I'm going to bring your attention over here to the left-hand side, right? So if you're a multi-company environment, know that that's out-of-the-box functionality that we can easily handle multi-company requirements, right? Down below, you see document types. These document types are set up according to your requirements. I like this particular list because it starts getting you really thinking very creatively about all the possibilities, right? But if we go back to what are we trying to do, in this case, we're saying, hey, I want to see my invoices, but I only want to see the invoices that are related to this particular PO number. And if I click Enter, all right, I'm going to see that particular return set. And the nice thing here is that if I hover over this particular PO number, then I'm even able to see other documents that relate to this particular document as well. So it's kind of giving you that nice drill down feature. And then I can choose which document that I want to actually view and then view them. So you can see right away that we've really given you this very, very robust and flexible search criteria, right? And now you have the power of documents at your fingertips. And even from this particular screen, right, you have the ability to even email these out. So one of the goals here is that if we're talking about AP, right, that's fantastic, but think about other areas. Maybe customer service would want even better agility to respond to customer inquiries. So this easy access to documents with powerful search criteria can really start impacting other areas of the business as well. Approvals. Now let's talk about approvals. In the beginning, we talked about one of the fundamental processes is AP invoice approval. And usually the bottleneck there is that invoices are getting stuck in the approval process. So companies are coming to us to try and help eliminate, that bottleneck. So what we're able to do is bring the invoice in, right? It can be coded, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment as well, and then route it out for approval. So with approvals, you have a lot of flexibility in terms of the different kinds of ways that you can approve a document. So you can approve it over here on the mobile device, right? You can actually just get an email and send the email out to your approving managers. They can look at the document. There's some nice information about this particular invoice as well. And then you'll notice that we have some links here that's going to send it to that next approver in the cycle or back to accounting for that voucher entry. All right. Minimizing data entry. This is really key as well. It really goes into that ROI equation of growing without adding headcount or simply maximizing your resources as they are. What happens here is that within the DocLink solution, let's go back there. On the right-hand side, we have what's called the GL distribution stamp. And this allows for the end user, either in accounting or the approving manager or a split function where you can share this. But coding is captured here in this particular area, eliminating managers writing on the face of the document, but capturing information to be repurposed so that ultimately, when this document gets back to accounting, they're able to just simply click import. Here we go, here's the import button, and that's going to update that transaction entry screen, right? One of the nice things here is that this is deeply integrated, right, into the ERP application. As well, you can do split coding, either by department or GL account code, etc. So that becomes really, really important as well, just in giving you the agility that you need to keep up with business. All right. Let's take a look at what's going on with accounts receivable. And really what we're seeing in accounts receivable is that folks are trying to get invoices out quickly. The faster you can get an invoice out, the faster you can get paid. What happens here, though, is that there's a lot of time being spent physically printing, stuffing envelopes, or I also see for those folks that have already taken a step to go paperless, they may be printing, having to do some massaging into a PDF, and then manually emailing it out. Where within DocLink, we have the ability to automatically capture the invoice, and then based on the trigger of that invoice hitting the system, it's going to be automatically sent out to your customer. And you can also join it up with other supporting documents. So if it's an AR invoice, right, we might be joining it up with a delivery receipt, a signed delivery receipt. Or if we had other information going out to a customer, such as a order acknowledgement, maybe there's the initial customer PO that was also, going to be sent along with it, just as part of evidence. So lots of possibilities here, right? So what it looks like is when the invoice is generated, it's going to be automatically captured into our system using that technology that we talked about earlier. And then based on how your configuration is, we have an opportunity then to send it out to the customer. And this is really a sample of what that email might look like. So you do have an opportunity to change the body of the email so that it is representative of your company's needs. And then the customer can view their invoice. and any backup that might have been sent along with it as well. From the accounting manager's perspective, they want to make sure that they have complete visibility and control of that invoice in order to be able to meet those things like an early pay discount or avoid a late fee, right, or be able to manage any exceptions that are coming down the pipe. It also allows for them to balance the workload if they have multiple AP clerks, in their team. The other element here is that if we're capturing data once and repurposing it, which is minimizing data entry, not only are you streamlining the process, but you're also improving accuracy. And so what I'm finding is there's a high degree of customers that spend a fair amount of time doing adjusting entries, right, or having to redo the transactions. And so by capturing that data once, all of that time will, in essence, get collapsed. So let's look at what happens in the system and why it's possible that we can help with visibility. Let's first talk about audit. Excuse me. The audit is really important because this is going to be very helpful, not only to track who did what to the document, but also if you're a company that gets either an internal or an external audit, it gives you a complete cradle-to-grave life cycle of what's happened with this document as well. So on the left-hand side, you're seeing just a picture of what the audit trail looks like. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing all the different options that you have in terms of which audit capabilities would you like to turn on. So this is giving you a little hint of configuration as well, in that the configuration is generally, a nice user interface as well. Now, when we talk about visibility and control, we have an application within the system, so it's really just functionality, not a module, but it's called the Workflow Supervisor. And what this allows for you to do is to see where all documents are in the process at any moment in time. So if you are in a circumstance where you needed to pull back a document to keep up with transactions, then you would have an opportunity to do that. And if I can bring your attention right here to this workflow column, right, and status, we'll see that there's a lot of documents in my little sample system here going through the AP workflow. And we're seeing the status that this is going through an AP review. This is unprocessed, right? And we can even see that there are some documents going with the HR director. Now, just bring your eyes over to the left-hand side. Here's a little bit of some sprinkles on the cake, if you will. Any kind of document, report, or form is a possibility of being stored in DocLink or routed through a workflow. So in this case, you're seeing HR documents go through a workflow process. And again, that's just to kind of help elevate the understanding of all possibilities when you're thinking about how will document management, increase your business. Here, what we're really trying to help you understand is that in many cases, companies are actually not aware of the amount of time that they're spending today manually managing documents through the entire cycle of that voucher entry process. And we're sharing this because we also want you to think very broadly in terms of not only is this happening in accounts payable, but you likely have similar document iterations in other areas as well. And here it's really about if you're touching manual paper and routing it manually through an organization, there's a huge opportunity to really streamline those business processes and bring greater visibility and control of those documents to the organization. And what we mean by that is that you're able to electronically capture a document, and once it's captured, now you have the beginnings of that audit trail, right? Not only do you have the beginnings of the audit trail, but now you can route it automatically, you have greater search capabilities, and depending on the function that you're trying to actually work within, you also now have the opportunity to impact transactions, right? So it's huge, huge, huge in terms of streamlining processes, really making the best use of staff's time, and then hitting more strategic initiatives of the company overall. Okay, let's take a peek at the CFO's role. and what is important to them. And for those folks that are not a CFO on the call, that's okay, because if you're responsible for bringing a document project into your organization, it would be nice to know kind of what's going on in that CFO's mind to help, in essence, sell the project internally. So typically what's going on there is we're looking at trying to decrease costs, right? Productivity gains, lower your DSOs, and have a simplified auditing process. And how we're able to help with that, especially on cut costs and improving productivity, is looking at where are the costs in a particular business process, right? Are we looking at trying to cut paper and copying and filing costs, which can be quite significant if you start, unpeeling those layers? Are you trying to eliminate offsite storage and retrieval fees? I think we have a little story kind of coming up, but this can be a massive cost savings to an organization, not only in hard dollar savings of the physical cost of that storage, but also in soft dollar savings of just having easier access to documents. Right now, we're looking at more strategic initiatives, growing without adding headcount. And also, by saving time, what other strategic initiatives does that open up for a company to actually pursue? That's another element of consideration. All right, so let's talk about audits. Audits are really critical, and they can be a significant kind of time crunch for companies, right? Not only in preparing for the audit, but supporting auditors while they're on site, and then, of course, doing the cleanup effort afterwards. I have many of my customers that have reported back to me that they've actually saved some hard dollar savings and reduced their audit fees specifically because of having DocLink and having easier access to documents. I had another customer that went through a very painful audit. They actually had a 6-digit penalty fee because they were not able to produce the documentation that they were requested to. And so their first step into DocLink was to historically bring in all their disbursement packets so that they could at least have those in-house, and then they went back and did more of a traditional implementation of Streamline in the actual physical AP invoice approval cycle. But here's what it looks like. From an audit perspective, either AP can do this function, or you can have, grant an auditor access. I seem to get a 50-50 split from folks on that. Some people say, no, I don't ever want to give my auditors access, and other people think it's a godsend. So you get to choose, which is the good thing. But you can actually select a series of documents, right? Select a date range for those documents. And then what you're actually seeing here is that you're able to mark these documents for download and then put them on, a particular media device in order to send them off to the auditor from a remote perspective as well. So that might become important and give you some agility in the organization as well. Now, all employees, right, just kind of changing topics a little bit here, are likely going to get a nice boost in productivity if you take a look at DocLink for expense report submission. This is a really, really nice feature, and it's actually what we use internally here at DocLink as well. And you have the ability to capture your receipts, right, on a mobile device. So this is a picture of a flight receipt. You can add in as many pages as you need to. You're going to have an opportunity to give some meaning to that document. Remember, we keep talking about add properties once and then repurpose. So what can happen here is that once you've actually given some meaning to that receipt, then you can physically import those receipts and that data into an expense report and use the power of workflow to get it approved, right, using the GL distribution stamp for coding, and ultimately import into the ERP application for payment of that expense report. So this can be very, very powerful. And again, you get to decide, which elements are going to be most important to your business. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about things from the IT perspective. Now, if document management is something that's very important to you and you want to take a deeper look, we can certainly send over system requirements and have a chat with one of our technical resources in terms of what would be important for you. But on the IT side, at the higher level, we're seeing that things that are very important are like disaster recovery and being able to have a system that is very easy to support and has minimal support requirements, yet very, very strong security. So only those people will get access to documents that they've been given, in essence, express security rights to view. Let's talk a little bit about workflow delegation. So if you go on vacation, right, or maybe you have a business obligation that's taking you out of the office and you need to assign your work queue to someone else, you have an opportunity to do that. So that's really, really nice because we want to be able to keep up with those transactional obligations to meet those more strategic initiatives that we've set forth. In addition, you can also do that user security. And what we mean by that is that depending on if you're multi-company, you can decide what users have access to what company. We can give you even a further granular opportunity to even filter that further by department. And then we can do it by document type and even properties within the document type. So this is really, really important because ultimately people don't want anyone to be able to access the documents, but you really want to give that specific security access. Now let's take a look at things from the sales director's perspective, right, or someone in sales. Now this may also not necessarily be related to sales, but anyone that's responsible for contracts, right, managing contracts, renegotiating contracts if contracts expire. That can be a very, very important element in another use case of document management. On the sales process side of things, we have an opportunity to automatically import documents in. This can also be really important on the AP side and import it automatically AP invoices. But just to kind of expand the use case here, we can have DocLink, Import Manager, look or monitor email. And when an email comes in, we have an opportunity to take not only that email, but also any documents that are in that email, bring them into the DocLink, and then also route them into a workflow automatically. So what you're doing there is you're saving some steps on bringing those documents into that functional piece of the process. You also can email or import email attachments from the mobile device. So that's really important as well, just being able to, in essence, upload those documents. Now we talked about contracts as well. So for those folks that are interested in having a better methodology to manage contracts, know that that's available as well. And it's really about storing the contract, storing the expiration date of that contract, and then when that contract becomes due for renegotiation, we can push that into a workflow so that you can be more proactively made aware of what needs to happen with that particular contract. Let's take a look now at a couple different elements of industry. And I'm going to go just kind of quickly through these because today is really about a very, very broad, sweep of functionality, because generally we have many, many different kinds of companies that are joining us for this kind of presentation. So my hope in sharing this with you is that you know that any document, report, or form can be brought into DocLink. Right? It doesn't really matter. It can be any kind of file type. And then depending on what you need to do with that document is going to dictate what happens next. Do you want to simply store it in the library for easy access? That's a possibility. Do you want to be able to put it through some kind of approval cycle? That's another possibility. Do we want to send it outside of the organization? Right? That's another possibility. So if document management is something that you want to pursue, then the next step would be to do what we call a discovery call, where we really outline and talk about the business processes that you're wanting to improve, and then we'll put together a demonstration that will really show you how those processes can get improved. But here's another possibility of just showing you that all of these documents in the manufacturing process can be brought into DocLink. We also have functionality that people get excited about, which is called version control. And this is really allowing for check-in and check-out functionality so that you can monitor, that last iteration of the document. And this is just showing that we've checked it out. It can give you a chronological order of who has physically touched that document. And of course, you're able to track what is the latest iteration as well. All right, distribution, that's another possibility. Let's talk a moment about web access. Many companies have dispersed workforces, and so it's important to know that you can access DocLink through the web as well. The functionality that is available via the web is to work on your documents that are in workflow. You can approve them, you can deny them, you can add notes to them, and you can also do search and retrieval functionality. So that's really nice as well. There are many different elements related to field services, right? And generally in field services, we're going to show accessing documents via the mobile device. So that's really nice as well. You can search for documents. In this case, we're going to say, let's look for a work order. And once you have that document in context, then you can do that normal kind of drag in, drag out functionality in order to view it more deeply. If you bring your eyes down to the bottom, right, you can also view the properties that are related to this document, and then also create any additional notes, right? So in this particular case, you see a note that was added, it says pending review. Then we also show that one particular employee actually physically approved this document as well. So there's some really nice functionality that's available via the mobile device. There's adding an approval or denial stamp or information. There's also the possibility of doing some electronic forms from the field. So if that's something that's critical to you, let us know and we can help you out with that as well. So that kind of brings us back to where we started in this overall picture of what's important to your company in terms of pursuing document management. Do you simply want to be able to capture documents and then be able to have them in a secure storage area for easy access? Or do you need to put those documents through some kind of workflow process and leverage the integration that has been built in, or replace your paper-based forms with the Smart Form Toolkit? Or is it critical for you to be sending documents outside of the organization? So all of these things are possible. You can do them one at a time, or you can do them as one big, massive project. It all depends on kind of what areas that you're trying to solve within your business. So will you take the initiative, right? If anything has been intriguing to you today, then the next step would be to schedule with David, right, a business process review, and we would work on that together and talk about what's happening in your business, what are the goals of your company, what are the business processes that you're trying to streamline and make more efficient, and then we'd be able to produce a quote for you and also gear up for that product demonstration.